I get a lot of crazy ideas, and my guest today here at the Real Estate Crowdfunding Show, Syndication in the Digital Age at GowerCrowd.com, has given me one of the most exciting, crazy ideas that I've had for a long time. And if you sign up for my mailing list at GowerCrowd.com, I will tell you all about it in due course. Adam Gower here. My guest today is Kim Garst, who is without doubt the most knowledgeable person you'll ever hear from about Facebook, and particularly about Facebook groups. Now, I've been faffing about with LinkedIn groups. In fact, I manage one with over 4,000 members for years, actually, but really, it's a bit of a dud to be quite frank with you. Facebook groups you will hear about today are an incredibly powerful tool for building a community online, and there are a bunch of different ways you can do that. It's totally fascinating. You've almost certainly seen groups on Facebook, right? And maybe are a member of some professionally inclined, others more social in nature. Well, today you're going to learn how to fully maximize the power of Facebook groups, building them either as a fully accessible resource to the general public, or on the other extreme as a closed group invisible to anybody other than those you wish to personally invite. In the course of the conversation today, you're going to hear about different ways to market your projects by peering through the lens of how the digital marketer sees the world. It's a very interesting perspective. As Kim says, Facebook is the elephant in the room. You can't live with it and you can't live without it. It's just one of those things. So after you've digested everything in today's show, be sure to check out the whiteboard workshop at the top of the podcast page at GowerCrowd.com. It's totally free, complete training where I show you how to raise more money for your deals online and how Facebook fits into that system. It's all at the podcast page for today's episode at GowerCrowd.com. All right, now I am delighted to introduce you to my special guest, Kim Garst, truly one of the world's foremost experts on Facebook. I'm so happy to have her on the show. You're going to learn so much about Facebook groups and a whole lot more. Ladies and gentlemen, Kim Garst. Kim, what an enormous pleasure to meet you. You are the world expert in Facebook. And I've had, I don't know how many episodes already. It is completely incongruous that I have not yet spoken to somebody about Facebook. So I'm super delighted to talk to you today.
Well, I'm super excited to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
You are more than welcome. Let me start off by saying that I find Facebook, first of all, I know it's super important for everybody that wants to do any kind of business, right? Particularly for real estate sponsors who are raising money online. But I find it of labyrinthine complexity, actually. So help me unwrap. We're going to talk about Facebook groups because I know you know more than anybody else about that. But let's start at the top. Tell me a little about, just help me get into this labyrinth or out of it, or at least conceptualize it a bit better than I currently do.
Sure. Well, obviously, Facebook is the elephant in the room. I mean, it is probably, well, it is definitely one of the very first social networks. There is like 900 million logins on Facebook every 60 seconds. So that's like a stunning number, right? I mean, there is, billions of people that are logging in or have accounts on Facebook. And the reality of it is that most people are more comfortable on Facebook than other social platforms. You know, they stay longer, they stick longer, they're looking around more than they do on other social platforms. And beyond that, most of our ideal clients or the relationships we're seeking are on Facebook. It's just a matter of, connecting the dots to get to those people. Because, again, the reality is even if they're not engaging on Facebook, they're still there. They're still looking. They're still consuming content, if you will, on Facebook.
So what are the key zones, if you like, of Facebook? Right, you've got your personal page, there's business pages, there's advertising, there's groups, etc. Kind of lay out the map for me a little bit, will you?
Great question, by the way. There is the personal profile, which when you sign up for an account with Facebook, you get what's called a personal profile. And you have to have a personal profile to, do a lot of the other things, to take advantage of some of the other functionality, if you will, of Facebook. Facebook pages, let me back up to profiles again. Profiles are not designed for commerce. So for those of us who, are interested in leveraging Facebook for business, we need a Facebook page or a Facebook group in order to be in compliance with their terms of service. And a Facebook page is a business entity. It's specifically, you can call it a Facebook page or a Facebook business page or a Facebook fan page. Those terms are interchangeable, by the way. They all mean the same thing. But a page allows us to have a business presence on Facebook. So there's SEO value in having a business page, because when people Google us, which they do, nobody really pays attention to business cards so much anymore.
Right.
Or if they do take your business card, they're still going to go to the Google machine and see what they can find about you. That's just the way people are today. So having that opportunity, when your name or your business is Googled, to show up with a Facebook presence is value-based. And of course, if you're planning on leveraging the power of Facebook ads, you have to have a Facebook page to be able to do that. So a Facebook group is either it's a closed community, if you will, where you can start to build a community around a common theme, interest level, or expertise. And so those are great enclosed places to really, really build out community versus a page. Both have their value, but they're just, different end goals, if you will. I still feel like you need a page because you want to show up with a business presence on Facebook. And again, the ads piece, if you're going to run ads, it's necessary to have the page. And of course, the Facebook ads platform is where they take our money, and we hopefully get a nice return on that. I will say that if you understand how to use the power of Facebook ads, they are tremendous. They are an ATM machine, but they do take some marketing skill.
They do, don't they? Yes, we've been doing a lot of advertising on Facebook. It's definitely multi-layered and very complicated. Let me ask you about groups, though. So actually, the way that I've set up my world is that my personal Facebook page strictly points to my business page, because, like, one of the very few people, I think, I don't engage socially on Facebook. It is strictly for business. I don't know what proportion of the Facebook users that fits me into. I'm probably quite small, I would imagine. But so my focus is entirely on the business page aspect of it. So if I'm trying to raise capital for real estate projects online, for my real estate project, for clients who's trying to raise money online, what is how do we think about either setting up a group to create an environment for communication versus leveraging existing groups?
Well, I think there's probably a place for both, but I would also say that from a core strategy and owning the opportunity versus leveraging someone else's opportunity, which is what you do when you're going into someone else's group to kind of harvest a lead, if you will, is that you are building your own entity, your own opportunity, your own community. You're fostering that community, and when you're setting up a Facebook group, you have to understand that it's bigger than what you're doing. It's, in my opinion, it's bigger than the purpose behind the group, because you got to approach the community aspect or the community building aspect from the perspective of what do they care about outside of this, like whatever, if it's expertise or in what you're just sharing is this going to be about, finding investors that might be interested in commercial real estate opportunities, right? Yeah. So What else? I mean, that would include some education. That would include sharing the latest and greatest opportunities. It would be facilitating conversations. It might be humor in some cases, because if you can get people to laugh or cry, you got them. So there's more to building a community inside of a Facebook group than just consistently pushing whatever it is that the group is all about.
Right. In other words, consistently trying to sell something.
Consistently trying to sell. Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about, if you don't mind, best practices for both setting up your own group and building it. And where do you start and how do you drive success? And also let's talk about what is best practice for leveraging other people's groups.
Sure. So setting up your own group is, again, I really feel like it needs to be up-leveled above the level of exactly what it is that you're trying to do. So meaning it's bigger, it needs to be a big idea, or it needs to be a more holistic envision. And I'm going to use an outside example, but it's a great one to paint the picture of how you up-level the concept or the name of the group. It still has to be all about the person you're trying to attract to that group, for sure, and what they care about. But one of the greatest examples I've seen of this thinking bigger, or maybe thinking outside of the box a little bit, is a group that started 4 or 5 years ago, and the name of the group was Screw the 9 to 5. And the premise behind it was just that, ditch your job, stop working for the man, and we'll teach you how to do that, essentially. But because of the messaging of the group, they attracted exactly that demographic. And so that's what I'm trying to say is, how do you look at the demographic that you're trying to attract, and then whether it's getting to the next level in your business, or whether it is, finding the right opportunities, be clever is what I'm saying with your name choice. And, again, make it about the result, the transformation that they're going to achieve through the experience of being a part of your community.
It's interesting you say that. I'm reading a book at the moment on copywriting expertise, and I've written I don't know how many millions of words one way or another, and it's fascinating to me that the headline, your subject line, really does drive so much.
It does.
Actually, it's almost everything is dependent on how well you phrase your tagline.
Yeah, and it's, in this case, it's a group name, but it's also it's messaging, it's setting the expectation, it's so many things as it relates to, how you're going to get the right people into that group. Because it doesn't matter how many people you have in the group if they're the wrong people, right? They're not going to ultimately care or, become the investor opportunity that your audience is looking for. So it's important. And I think when you can think of it bigger than just, hey, I'm just trying to find these people and, they're just investors. What else? How do you really address that transformation that they might be looking for in a group name?
So there are two ways of getting people into a group. Well, at least actually maybe three. One is to invite them. Mm-hmm. One is to be asked by somebody proactively to enter the group. And then I suppose the third is to advertise, right?
Well, you can't directly advertise a group with Facebook ads, but you can connect your group to your business page. And when you do connect your group to your business page, you can pin an announcement about your group to the top of your business page. So that's a great way to drive traffic to your page.
Okay.
When you were talking about best practices, so it's kind of like not super cool to just add people to your group. So when you're doing outreach and you want to invite people to your group, make sure you share why and what's in it for them.
Actually, let me just jump in and ask. I'm going to interrupt you there, which my wife hates when I interrupt, but
No,
I'll
feel
never
free to go
remember
for it.
this.
Yeah.
So it's not cool to just add people, which begs the question, can you just add somebody to your group without inviting them and having them say yes?
Well, yes, you can, but it usually ticks them off. And again, it depends on whether or not your group is open or closed. So there is some nuances to the types of groups and the different things that you can and can't do. But regardless of whether you can do it or not, don't. Is my message to
Yeah.
you. Make sure you have do some outreach and say why you feel like this might be a great fit. And if they would, if they're interested, here's the link, and then they can join, actually, even by the virtue of sending an invite, the link to the group is in that invite. So I would definitely encourage personal outreach instead of just, hey, you're in my group, because it really does annoy people. And now when they see those opportunities, and if they don't feel led to join your group, they can actually block that group. So you're never going to get them, going forward. And
Yeah.
that's never a good thing.
It's interesting because I suddenly discovered that I was in a bunch of groups and I had no clue how that had happened. You're absolutely right. It's like, I don't want to be, why am I even in this thing?
Yes.
So let's talk about actually then, what are the best ways of driving traffic to a group? What is the best?
There's so many ways. One of the most effective ways that I have found, like I said, you can definitely connect your Facebook page to your group. That's one way. Another is to advertise your Facebook group everywhere, to include having a link on your primary website. Like, in your nav bar where you've got like home and you've got products or services or whatever, free group, free Facebook group, whatever, and make sure that you are taking advantage of all traffic sources that you have, because people will be like, oh, what's that about? And they'll check, click on it, and if it's of interest to them, then they'll absolutely add themselves to the group. So obviously, if you're doing interviews like this, mention your group, or there's so many other ways, but it's all about making sure that your group is front and center and literally any place where you have a traffic source.
That's really interesting. All right. So tell me something about the difference between open and closed groups. I am actually a member. I found Facebook to be phenomenally useful with groups, particularly on the tech side.
Yes.
If I'm using a particular platform, it's an amazing place to go and get questions answered very, very quickly, and actually to find good subcontractors actually to help do some of the work.
Yeah.
But what is the difference between open and closed, and what are the dynamics between those?
So recently Facebook did just change their, it used to be they had the secret and the different 3 different layers essentially, and now they just have the open and closed essentially groups. Open is just that, it's public, it's anybody can add anybody at any given time. There's not a lot of control, if you will. Plus, outsiders can see who's in the group. They can see, harvest your group members if they want to. That's always been a concern for people who are building community. If they have an open group, is that, competitors will come and, harvest their group members, meaning add those people to their groups, etc. So the pros of it, though, is that it's just that it's public. It can be found very easily in search. It's a very easy for people to add to add to the group. So your group members can add, and there's not an admin that has to approve or any of those types of things. It's just wide open, in other words. And you'll find a lot of larger entities, like a larger, maybe cancer groups, for example, or anything that's like big like that, where they don't you hate to say they don't care. I don't mean it like they don't care who's in their group. I don't mean it like that, but it's open. It's come on in. It doesn't matter. Anybody, everybody's welcome kind of thing. Versus a closed group, and a closed group has two options now. Even though it's all this, it's still going to be a closed group, but there's two check marks. So one is that you can technically make your content hidden, meaning the group itself can't be searched for, and nobody can see the members and this kind of thing. If you don't choose that option, it's just a closed group. People can still see the group, find the group, in other words, in the search feature, and that's important. So my recommendation for the most part, if you're trying to build community, is to go with that that closed group without the secret functionality, because you want to be found. You want to be searched for and found, and but people can find it, but they can see the admins, but they can't see everything. Like they can't see the content in the group or anything of that nature. So it protects the conversations that are happening inside of the group, and that I think is important. Especially if you are creating an environment where people feel like they can have those safe conversations, like their content's not out there in the public space. So going back to the public group, anything that's posted in that group is public for anyone to see. In the closed group, the content can only be seen if you are a member of that group.
Right. And so the two types of groups that I've been a member of, and do forgive me, I know you can see me typing. I'm just trying to keep notes. Right. No, in my prior podcasts, it was all audio. So I just scribble. I had my head down, scribbling stuff while I was listening. Now it's typing. So I know it can be a bit distracting. Don't let it. I'm hyper focused.
We're good. You're good.
So my question is then, so let's kind of unwrap this. There are two types of groups that I've been a member of. One, the one I've described, I'm pretty sure they're closed groups because I've had to apply for membership. They've had a set of rules of behavior, if you like, and I've somehow been screened. I've never been told no, right? But whatever, that's fine. But I've always applied to stuff that makes sense as well. And then the other kind, Kim, that I've also been a member of, is very interesting, quite different. And I'm interested in asking about both of these types from the perspective of a real estate developer trying to raise money online from investors, perhaps sharing confidential information or etc. So the second type is where I have actually off Facebook joined some kind of monthly membership club, right, of some sort, right? I've subscribed because I want insights, and one of the benefits of that is to be invited to a Facebook group of other paying members of that group, and that's a very different feel actually inside that. So help me understand both of those, if you would. Yes. and how they might be leveraged differently for a sponsor raising money.
Technically, they're not different groups necessarily. They could have a secret functionality, though, meaning that that only the members that have purchased the product or service, and Facebook group is used as a support element for whatever you purchased, right? So that could be a secret group. Meaning there's that secret functionality where, only the people inside of that group get to see the conversations, and that might be a better fit for, people who, have communities where there is sensitive information being shared. Absolutely, you would probably want to protect those conversations. Like I'll share I have most of my groups right now are closed, and they are paid groups, meaning they are somebody paid for something else, and we have a Facebook group that supports that paid element. Like my inner circle, for example, or my mastermind clients. I'll just use my mastermind clients real quick because I think it's a smaller community. Obviously, the conversations that happen in there need to be protected, and the people inside of that community also need protection.
What is the nature of the conversations that requires protection?
So in this particular case, there may be income, conversations. There could be, team building conversations. There's sensitive information that they would not necessarily want everybody knowing about their business, right? There may be, hiring problems or like a variety of different things, because these are business owners, and they are sharing, they hire me to help them up-level their business. So in that environment, the space is protected we do manage the conversations in a Facebook group. And then of course they also have a login to a membership dashboard where, our Q&As and, our hot seats or, any courses that are gifted to them as a part of the process, they can access all of that in another location.
Right. That's off Facebook, right?
And that's off Facebook.
So yeah. There's no gateway to a Facebook group on Facebook that is paid. You have to pay somewhere else and then you get access on Facebook, right?
Correct. And I would suggest this could be an option for somebody that is interested in doing some sort of a membership that is paid, that might even teach the whole real estate investing process, right? What does that look like? That's obviously another opportunity, another conversation, but there's a huge need for knowledge. And it could be leveraged in that capacity.
So, gosh, we're really digging deep in now, so I'm really fascinated by this subject, Kim. So, a couple questions. Let me start with the dynamics of the conversation. Let's talk about a closed group, because I think that's most likely where we really want to be. Just my gut feel, rather certainly than an open one that either requires invitation or there is some kind of subscription related to it of some sort. So people are taking it more seriously, right, from that perspective as well. They're there, they have a purpose, they recognize that this group can serve that objective of theirs, right, that they're going to derive actual value from it because they're paying for it, for example. What are the dynamics inside a group, the way that members communicate with each other?
Well, I think that's the beautiful part about a Facebook group versus a Facebook page. When we have a Facebook page, we're just sharing content and, people, might like it or they might leave a comment, but there's no real deep relationship building going on there. But inside of a Facebook group, it's a totally different dynamic. So community to me is bigger than me just talking to someone and them talking back to me. That's just a one-sided, that's just a two-way conversation, right? But community is where you lead the conversation, or others can even lead the conversation, frankly. But it's about the community as a whole supporting one another and sharing information and all of that. Wow. That's awesome. That's so adorable.
To say hello occasionally. He probably
so cute. Like, here, Dad, I need some attention.
I know, but I'm busy. I'm busy. Sorry.
Mine just came. You didn't see her, but she was here just a moment ago.
I'm so sorry.
So the dynamics of conversation inside of a Facebook group can be so much deeper, and true value delivered. Either whether you're leading the conversation or, active members within the community leading the conversations or adding their own value to the conversation. It's a totally different dynamic and one that has to be fostered, in my opinion.
Fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating, isn't it? Because when you set up a group, the group members start to create their own content, their own dialogue. They ask questions of each other. So as the group starts to take on its own life, it actually starts to breed its own organic value as people start to talk. So as a moderator, as the leader of a group, how do you interact with that? What are best practices, again, for spurring things along, for providing ultra high level value that kind of keep things moving and growing?
Well, the thing about it is that could come in a lot of different shapes. So you could go live in your Facebook group, which I highly recommend, by the way, and give great value, not only deliver great value, but engage and listen and have the group members be seen and heard. Because even though you're the face of that interaction, they still can feel like they're being seen because they drop in a question and you answer it. So it's like real time conversation, and it's probably the fastest way to really build out the know, like, and trust factor, because they get a sense for your personality. They start to see, oh, this guy or this gal really knows their stuff, and I'm in the right place. I feel like I'm getting a ton of value from this relationship or this group. So the Facebook Lives are huge. I also think that there's a lot of value in what I call themed days, meaning, and again, it depends on, I'll give you a couple of my examples because every niche is totally different. But for me, it's like, it could be, well, I'll use one for you. Maybe it's Investment Tip Tuesday, or Tech Tip Thursday, or Facebook Friday, where you're encouraging the members to connect on Facebook, on their Facebook pages, to support one another, to get their numbers up, etc. Twitter Tuesday, there's lots of different ways that you can engage and have them engage with each other on Facebook or on other social platforms, so that there's that connection. Or leverage those theme days just to deliver more additional value,
Do you have guests? Do you bring guests in?
And you can do guests as well. Absolutely. And I think that's where the Facebook Live element can really be impactful. Because then they see the both of you and oh, wow, this is like, this is amazing. I have access to this content. Where else would I get it? So that circles back to the Facebook Live, but I highly recommend, whether it's it's 2, it could be up to 4, or depending on the tool, you could do even 6. You could do a panel inside of your Facebook using Facebook group and using, Facebook Live, with the right tools. So there's just so many ways that you can do that. And sometimes it's just asking open-ended questions like, what? And sometimes it has nothing to do with the theme of the group. It has everything to do about life. Like, what you guys up to today? Sometimes it's just engaging people where they are. And again, about things that they care about outside of the investment element.
Kim, this is absolutely fascinating. So I've got a very important question, but I've got a slightly less important one that I get. My heart palpitates when I think of going live. Seriously, I've been on one live so far. Did not like. I've got another one coming up. I find it really uncomfortable. How do you get over that? Like, I'm happy talking to you now because I know I can cut, edit. The dog comes in, right? Well, so what, right? It's totally editable. Live, there's people
Well, so I have a couple of things to say about this because I was you. Honestly, I was that perfectionist that felt like everything had to be perfect. I would edit a video. My team hated me on video days because I literally would shoot the same video 50 times, and that is no lie. A 3-minute video shot 50 times, and then I would edit it to death, until it was perfect. So the very idea of going live, I was like, no, that is not happening.
So exactly the same.
But when I realized, I went live a couple of times and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all these people and look at how many people I can help. And it's, at the end of the day, it's not about us. And if we're here to make an impact or to connect with people around things that we know we can make a difference in their lives with, then we're just being selfish if we get hung up on our own self. Because it really is about us. And the beautiful part about live video is people are not looking for perfection. In fact, they crave the opposite. They're wanting authenticity. They don't care if our nose is shiny or our hair is sticking up. They really don't. Or if a light falls on our head, I've had that happen. So it's just a fascinating dynamic, and how different it is when you're live in an environment and again, it goes back to that. They feel like they can be seen and they can be heard. And it's not about us at all. And
It's
if we can, realize that we are just totally being selfish by not putting ourselves out there and sharing and making a difference for others, then, at the end of the day, it's our bad.
That's a really, really interesting perspective. I actually thrive on standing in front of actual crowds and
Right.
speaking. But the idea of that crowd being behind a lens like now is a little intimidating, especially live. All right, so let me ask you this, though. Let's move back to the group focus, because it's really interesting. So let's say I want to set up a group, and I do. I'm very interested in this idea. How do you start? What is our critical mass for getting going? And how do you start a group when you've got, one person? How do you start?
Well, I think it starts with being committed to the concept. Don't even bother to start if you don't plan to be consistent. So I think that's the first thing I would suggest is if you're iffy or you're not committed to it, then don't bother. That would be the first thing, because I see so many people jump into it because they think it's a great idea, and then they can't support it, they don't have a plan around it, that kind of thing. But the way you start is very simple. You just go to facebook.com/groups is probably the easiest place to find the setup functionality for your group. I think before you do that, though, you might really go back to what I said earlier, which is what is the purpose of this group, and how are you going to name it in such a way that it's not one, it's going to attract the right people. Two, it can be found. And or if you're going to advertise it consistently, then is the theme of it or the area of expertise going to resonate with the people you're trying to attract? So I really feel like now you can change the name of your group so you're not set in stone. Like if you start and you realize you need to shift it, tweak it, you can always go back and edit the name of your group. So don't feel like making the decision is set in stone. But I would give it some thought before you start, just so that you have that perspective. Set it up, and then start doing some outreach and start seeing who's interested. Have a plan for content, because I think that's important too. It doesn't have to be super fancy smancy. I would suggest that you put some content in the group before you start adding people to it. Because if somebody comes to a group and it's a ghost town,
Right.
There's no Netflix effect, right? There's nothing for them to consume. So guess what's going to happen? They're going to be there and they're going to bounce.
So can you use like a lead magnet for that? I mean, I do have an idea for a slightly wacky group. You
Yes.
create a giveaway, sign up for the group, and we'll send you a PDF.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the functionalities that Facebook has with their groups, they ask 3 questions when you request to join, right? You have that 3-question opportunity. One of those questions, in my opinion, should be, what's your email address? That way you can start to collect those email addresses, and it's one way to start really owning the real estate, your own real estate. Even though you're building a community on Facebook, having that email address gives you a touch point that is important because you own that. If Facebook changes group rules or something like that, then at least you have a touch point. You can connect with that person outside of Facebook if it comes to it. Now, Facebook has said recently, Mark Zuckerberg said at the F8 conference that they're really, really focusing on Facebook groups moving forward. And I don't know if you've seen this in the app itself, but now there is a Facebook group option, in the little icons down at the bottom. So they're already making this shift. They're advertising Facebook groups all over the place, paying for ads on TV and things of that nature. So they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're really going to be pushing Facebook groups, and the opportunity for Facebook groups is so great right now because because of that, Facebook is saying that they're going to do that. Facebook pages the content on Facebook pages are hard to get into the news feeds of the fans of those pages because of the algorithm.
Right.
You know, you could be posting content and it'd be like crickets on a Facebook page.
That's right.
But when you have an engaged Facebook page, those members are going to see that content in their feed versus, you know, hoping that, you know, 2% of your Facebook fans, if you're lucky, will, you know, see the content from your page in their feeds. So having that opportunity right now, it's a rich one. And, you know, whether or not I think the Facebook group functionality is going to expand in some interesting ways because Facebook has told us that that's what's happening. But going back to my original point, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be moving people from social media to a place that you own as quickly as you possibly can. So use those 3 questions.
Fantastic. Let me ask you one final question before I ask you 3 final questions, if I may.
I think that's 4, but that's good.
I've got three sign-off questions that I ask all the same of all my guests.
Okay.
But I do have one here. So when you, in your business, as you bring clients into your closed group to teach them how to master Facebook, presumably your masterclass, for example, how do you handle the conflict between clients who are in the same business, sharing insights that inevitably will lead them to competing with each other?
I think that's such a lack mindset, frankly.
A lack?
A lack mindset. When somebody feels like that the next person beside them, even though they're in the same space, is their competition. The only competition we have in life, in my opinion, is ourselves. Now, I understand that some would disagree with me on that, but we all attract different people to us in our business based off of what we put out into the world. Somebody that is going to be, you know, different people will be attracted to you than are attracted to me. So our vibe, it attracts our tribe. And it also attracts the people that are willing to spend money with us. So, you know, when you're copycatting or you're trying to do something that somebody else is doing, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. So tactics are tactics. What you bring to that tactic is what ultimately is going to shift the model to you or not. You know, it's all, we are the difference. Owning our own uniqueness and approaching it from a giving, serving heart will always attract the right people to us. And you should never have to worry about what the person next to you is doing and who they're attracting, because they're going to be watching you.
Absolutely fascinating. So that does dovetail beautifully into my 3 sign-off questions, if I may. First one, for somebody starting out, a real estate developer starting out syndicating their deals online for the first time, what is the most important thing, Kim, that they should keep in mind?
Always be who they are and lead with a servant-based heart. I think if you do that, the rest falls into place. So many people are trying to be somebody they're not, or afraid to be themselves in some cases because they, you know, it's just a big problem, I think. So I would say be authentic, be genuine, approach it from a servant-based place, and you will be fine.
Very interesting. All right. Second question. What's been the hardest lesson you've personally learned online?
I think the hardest lesson that I have learned in the online space, and I've been online for 28 years, so I've owned an online business for a long time, is to not focus on the things I don't know. In fact, if I don't know something, I find somebody that knows what I want to know, that's doing what I want to do, and I pay them to shortcut the knowledge. Because we can spin our wheels, we can watch YouTube videos until our eyes bleed, we can read blog posts. Knowledge is there if we want to hunt and peck for it, but I don't have time for that. I want to go to the source. I want to find the person that knows what I need to know, what I want to know, or is doing what I want to do. And then and that's important. It doesn't matter if they know what I want to know. I want to see that they're doing what I want to do. they can demonstrate it. And if they can and I can see it, then I'm more than willing to pay for it.
Final question. Your personal key daily habits to be successful online.
I start with reading my Bible every morning because I think there's so much, everything, every self-help book out there or every personal development piece has its origins, in my opinion, in the Bible. So I am very faith-based. I do start there. I think that reflects in how in my day, each and every day. So that is one thing. Love to tell you that I exercise, but that would be a huge lie. But I am very cognizant of my health outside of the exercise. And I read other things. I am focused on learning something new every day. And I have, I usually plan that out the day before, whether I'm, reading a book that I want to, that's not the Bible, but some, in fact, one book that I'm reading right now, because it's right here in front of me, is Never Split the Difference. I just got this book, so I'll be starting on this. Somebody recommended it to me, so I'm always reading is my point.
Lovely. Kim Garst, thank you so very much indeed for your time today. An enormous pleasure.
And back at you, I'm so excited that I was able to share my knowledge with your community. Thank you again for inviting me.
That was Kim Garst, world expert on Facebook groups and a fascinating lady. Now, remember, sign up for the whiteboard workshop on the podcast page at GowerCrowd.com because that will also get you first notice of the amazing Facebook group that I'm going to be launching directly as a result of this amazing conversation with Kim Garst, who has truly inspired me to set up a group and to really have some fun with it. All right, you'll find that workshop link at the podcast page at GowerCrowd.com. That's it. Thanks for listening. And thank you, Kim Garst, Facebook groups expert, for spending your time with us today. That's all for this episode. I'll see you next time. And for now, this is Dr. Adam Gower signing off.